morning. Recently, I had the great good fortune of seeing Elton John in concert on his farewell tour. As you can imagine, he was fantastic, Captain Fantastic. And his songs have been stuck in my head ever since. And when I thought about this presentation and that we were talking about difficult decisions, I thought to myself about how proud I was that Coker has been fighting for 2 years to make its future different. And there are lyrics in this song, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, that I think really help describe what we've gone through. Oh, I need the clicker. The very first line of the song, "It's getting late, have you seen my mates?" So I started at Coker in June of 2020, and this is what we looked like. A decline in enrollment and finances for a number of years. We've had no significant changes in curriculum that were exciting or could potentially attract new students or partnerships. We had a lack of connection with and support from our alums, and we had below average student success outcomes. So our mates were the 24 small colleges that had closed since 2017. I don't want those to be my mates. Higher education, it's getting late. You are either innovating and you're moving forward and you're being an outstanding institution, or you get to join the group in the red. We had to do some drastic things. We're in the midst of COVID. We had those terrible bullet points of what we were and what we were going to continue to be if we didn't change. So we had to do some things very quickly. So when I talk about, well, strategic planning, that's not something that's too exciting or outrageous. Well, remember, by this time, it's early fall of 2020, and we are all in COVID mode every day, like zombies. You get up, well, what did the CDC put out last night? What parent is upset today? What student demands to be out of quarantine? Has the NCAA changed their testing rules? What are we going to do about this event? Can we have 10 or more people? It was constant, everybody. I'm sure many of us have blocked it out, but you lived your days with COVID. And so for us to say, yep, we're going to do all that and our day jobs, and now, bam, we've got to do a strategic plan, and we're going to do it differently than we've ever done it before. And that is, we're going to create a strategic planning committee that is made up of faculty and staff. I think we had one dean on there, but no executive committee members. We had Dr. Katie Flaherty, our VP for Institutional Effectiveness, was our liaison, and she would bring data, but that core group of decision makers were faculty and staff. Because I believe we're higher education. We have educated people. Let's bring them data. Let's let them hear from focus groups. Let them see survey information, and let them create their own sense of urgency about having to change the direction for the institution. So we did strategic planning different. We did it quickly, so that by April of 2021, our Board of Trustees had approved a new strategic plan, and we rolled right into creating our institutional scorecard. Again, man, now we're a year thick into COVID. We are doing all the things we talked about before, but now for us, and probably for many of you, now we're running fall sports on top of the spring sports schedule. Oh, by the way, and I have a coach right here who is on our strategic planning committee. We need you to keep focusing and build a scorecard. But we did it, and all of those things going around couldn't matter because we had to drive towards the pillars that we came up with in the strategic planning process, right? It doesn't matter, the world's on fire, because when COVID ends, all of a sudden our enrollment numbers aren't going to change, our finances aren't going to change. We have got to keep driving to the 4 areas that we say are important to us, and that we keep driving improvement in those 4 areas. So I'm going to want to take just a quick second to talk about the institutional scorecard. I know many of you have them, but I'll round back to this at the end. So our institutional scorecard, which is very different, Coker's never had one before. We bring it out every quarter, and where we can measure things already, we put our numbers in there, right? So where is it that we have met our goal? You'll see there's a couple ones in there that relate to university culture, which I'll get to in a minute. But there were times where we not only hit our goal 3, we surpassed our number 4 stretch goal, and we've already hit our super stretch goal. And in an environment where I'm going to talk about what we're doing that's difficult, we needed to continue to celebrate those wins. And I know those are things happening on your campus as well. But for Coker, these things are new, and it's changing the dynamic about paying attention to improvement. So as we continue to move forward, then we had a little surprise. Maybe not a surprise so much, but all of on a new role, don't always know everything that you're going to be managing, and say that I think the higher you go, you the truth, or they conveniently forget things when you're in the interview process. Now, at Coker, I'm just, for those who've been here, I'm open kimono. I knew it in our 990s and some of the financial information they gave me before I took the position, but I probably paid more attention to it in my first year, but honestly, this thing for us, right. Beautiful things about DHP last year, we actually took our executive team down to Pensacola for it, was we then met Dan and hired Dan Burry, our new VP of Finance, who started July 12th. And I think within 7 to 10 days, Dan and I understood that we had a $5.2 million budget gap in the fiscal year we'd already started. We had but such that it took a lot of digging to really understand how it is the institution had kept itself afloat, and there was no money left under the mattress. And for some institutions, particularly larger institutions, 5.2 million, you might tighten your belt, you might not fill a few positions, you might, defer a little more maintenance or not do an investment in technology. 5.2 million is 25% of Coker's operating revenue. So we didn't have any of those options. I very quickly let my board chair know we had an issue and that in 10 days I'd have a plan. And so I brought my executive team together, who, by the way, is already doing their day job, their COVID job, their everything else job. And now, guys, we have to completely redefine what Coker looks like financially. I had a town hall for all of the campus where I just laid the information out. I was very clear that this was going to hurt, that if we had had enrollment declines, we had not adjusted the size of our staff, and we were people-driven, and this was going to be a people solution in order to get us back in line. As we finished our plan, then had to institute some very painful things that I think people weren't, look, was it a surprise to people that we were that much in the hole? Yes, but people knew, right? You just honestly physically had to look around the campus to say that we weren't taking care of ourselves. So, but with a 25% gap, we had to do it all at once. So we laid off a bunch of staff. Everybody, unless you were on a grant fund, which is really 99% of our employees, had to take furloughs in 9.5 months because we're already into the fiscal year. So many of the people from my team had to take 26 days of furlough in 9.5 months while we're managing a financial disaster. Almost everyone's health insurance premiums went up, and we suspended the retirement match for the academic year. Yeah, ow, right? But I will tell you, that was not enough. We had a spending problem, right? So decline in enrollment, we're tuition and fee driven, and our spending, honestly, hadn't just stayed flat. In some cases had gone up. We had to systemically change that. So we did what we could do across the board and on the staff side, but the fact is that we also had programs that not only were we losing money on, but were not helping us be innovative or seem relevant in the marketplace. So in the midst of all this, I asked my provost, Dr. Henderson, I said, we need to take a look at low enrolled programs. No, wait, we need to take a look at programs that have low graduation rates. Low numbers of graduates. So she did that, and she got down to 9 programs that had about 3 graduates a year for the last 5 years. And I said, now we are going to do a simple mathematical calculation to determine which programs are worst case, and we're going to have to think about closing those. And so we simply took the salaries of the full-time faculty and divided it by the number of graduates in the last year, over the last 4 years. Then we figured out the average amount of revenue those graduates brought in, and there's a threshold there that we could easily see where we were losing tens of thousands of dollars on each graduate in those programs. Dr. Henderson did this in about 4 weeks. You know, when people say you can't change quickly, I'll ask you to come and talk to Susan, because she bears the scars for this. You know, whenever I get a chance, I talk about the fact that as we were going through these programmatic changes, Susan stood alone. She could wear all the armor she wanted, but on the front lines, no one's, they were mad at me, but they knew I inherited a bad situation. They're not going to yell at the athletic director. They're not going to get upset at the vice president for institutional effectiveness. The provost owned it. So she had to stand there and take all the arrows and bullets and unhappiness for everybody else. And I just want to give you a round of applause, Susan. It was not easy. In the end, we closed 3 programs, and 6 of them became concentrations, not degrees. We affected 18 faculty members, the vast majority of which were tenured, which added to all of the fire and heat around these changes. But we were, again, very upfront about them. After we had identified the 9 programs, Susan went around with each dean, met with all the faculty members that were going to be affected. The good news is that there was consensus there, consensus that don't eliminate my job, don't eliminate my program. And oh, by the way, we can recruit more. You know, we just have in the last 7 years, but we'll change all that. So when you talk, Janet, about that number 1 priority, I would say to you that in 2 years, we probably turned over 40% of our positions. And I feel, though, that this fall, there's going to be a different air on campus. And I've had people tell me that they're looking forward to it because they believe there's going to be fresh air at Coker. And let me tell you why I believe that to be true, even with some of the people that we're sorry to see go. So all of this stuff happened at least from a campus perspective, in 6 to 8 weeks, because we were tight, right? We had to get this done during the current financial year, an academic year. So when the last thing that happened was we announced which programs were going to be closing and which were going to become concentrations. I then had a town hall and said, guess what? We're going to do the employee engagement survey. Because if you're going to be honest, if you're going to be authentic and truthful about trying to improve the university culture, you can't just give it when everybody's happy. You can't just take a pass on it because you did the really, really hard stuff. You have to give people the opportunity to just cream you anonymously. So we did. We rolled out the survey. And you might remember in the institutional scorecard, there was a block that was a 1, which means we know even before the academic year is over that we failed in that improvement area, and that was increasing our score in the employee engagement survey. When we gave our first employee engagement survey in fall of 2020, we had a 3.72, which, if you know our history, I was okay with that. And but we built the scorecard before any of us knew what was going to happen in the fall in relation to all the personnel and financial issues. So I was prepared. I'm like, we're going to be a 2. Okay, I can take it. I know people are angry and they're hurt and they're disappointed and they want things to be different. And it's okay that they're going to put all that into the employee engagement survey. And we got the results back and we did go down. And we went from a 3.72 to a 3.52, which to me meant that even though they hated what they heard, they believed that we had to do it. They believed we did it with excellence, that we did it with integrity, that we were really doing it to save the place that most of them loved. And that was really the cake for me. But the icing on it, and how I know that we are on our way to being different, is particularly if you focus on the faculty impact of it, they did amazing things for the institution, some of them on their way out as we move forward. When I announced the first town hall that our budget situation was so bad, I created a transformation council, and I had 3 groups in there. I had a budget innovation council, I had an operational innovation council, and I had an academic innovation council. And for the academic innovation council, I asked them to do 2 things. One was, can you take a look at Gen Ed? Can you help it? Can you fix it a little? Because we had gone through what I understood to be a horrific process to change Gen Ed about 7 years ago that, as you know with faculty, they hold on to that baggage. And I didn't think we could do it all over again, especially after the current, especially the environment of the anger and disappointment that everybody had. So I'm like, try to change it because it wasn't transfer friendly. And we really did penalize students if they changed their major. God forbid an 18-year-old changes their mind. So it had to be different. And in the spring, the faculty did this. They completely revamped Gen Ed. They didn't tweak it. They didn't touch it here. They didn't shine it over there. They overhauled it. I put OMG up there because if any of you have been involved in changing Gen Ed, the fact that they did it in a matter of months was outstanding. But not only that, our faculty approved 12 new degrees, 7 of those in nursing, 5 new concentrations in business, and they updated 4 other ones. They added 4 new minors and certifications, and they did major revisions to other undergraduate programs and graduate programs. It is the icing on the cake because they were mad and they were disappointed. They were sitting next to people that were not going to be there in the fall, and yet they did the right thing for the organization. So that is my icing on the cake, and that is how I know that when we start in fall of next year, we will be different. We're on our way to being an institution grounded in excellence and integrity, understanding the measures that matter, moving towards continuous improvement, and quite frankly, a much brighter future for the institution and our students. So I say to you, it's worth the fight. Our folks fought, I mean, on top of COVID, and I know that sounds repetitive, but you all know how exhausting that was, and particularly in the last year, fought every day, not just Saturday night being all right for fighting, but every day to make the institution what we hope it will be. And so I say to you that when you're in it, when it's tough, when you got to do those tough decisions or stand up there alone, it's worth it. Thank you.